All right. This Hangout on Air is live. So, talking about stuff. It's a show we do sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it was your suggestion that we go ahead and record one because you've got cool stuff.
I have actual stuff for this one.
Wow. Tell us about this stuff. I think I know some of it.
Let me get it. So, if anybody listened a while ago, it was probably April that my sister decided that she wanted to run the Disney Marathon in January of 2015, and my brother and I agreed to do it with her. And then in sort of a, not even sort of, in an asinine one-upmanship or competitiveness, we saw that you could, they also have a half marathon that weekend, and we saw that you could run both, and it was called the Goofy Race and a Half Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So my brother and I said, we should do that. And then we talked about it. So we signed up for it, and we said, oh, that probably shouldn't be our first marathon. Maybe we should do one before that. Never got around to it. Did some half marathons before at least, so we at least knew kind of what we were getting into. But it was going to be our first marathon. So that was this last weekend. So I'll tell a little bit about the story of it, but first we got some hardware. So that's for completing the half marathon on Saturday. Nice. So it's it's a Donald Duck running thing, but it's pretty big.
Yeah. That's fancier looking than I would have expected from a, completed a half marathon race. I guess I didn't realize you got something other than satisfaction. Yeah, well, this is Disney, so. Yeah. And that's part of what your entrance fee pays for, I'm sure.
It is. Then
that's so cool, yeah.
That's the marathon. It's even bigger.
Wow.
So that's Mickey.
Yeah.
But then, because you did both, and you got the Goofy, you also got the Goofy. And so on one side, it has the marathon, and then it spins. Mm-hmm. It has the half marathon on the other side.
Nice. Is it a 10 because they've been doing it for 10 years? Or?
Yes, it was the 10-year anniversary.
Oh, nice. Not a bad one to do the first time?
Yeah. So, got a little spinner. But yeah, it's some, as you can see, some pretty serious hardware.
Nice.
So that's the physical stuff I have. But I'm really proud of myself for having done it. I'm proud of my brother too.
Great.
We didn't have phenomenal times, but it was our first time, and we did do a pretty extended run period. It's 39.3 miles in 2 days. Oh, sorry, I have to assist with.
A man's work is never done.
Nope, never. So I had to open some pickles. But yeah, it's 39.3 miles in 2 days in 24-hour period. So we did lots of training, which that's most of the commitment to it. But what my brother and I focused a lot on was training ourselves to recover quickly. And I think I talked a lot about like the theory of the training schedule I'm not going to go into all that again. If you want to go back and listen to another episode.
Yeah, we talked about it in previous talking about stuff.
I did follow that training plan where it was, more about quality and technique and, all this type of stuff. But it really got me to where I could recover quickly, and my brother as well. But we weren't. Not that we weren't, I won't say we weren't prepared for the distance because we clearly completed it. We weren't prepared to run at a top speed for 26 miles, regardless of having done the half before, because we focused all our training on the recovery and spent a lot of time doing that. We didn't build the, we built our bodies to flush the lactic acid and all that stuff over a 24-hour period, not to be able to handle it during a long race. But we were fine. and it just we could be faster if we trained a little different. So I will say, you hear a lot about marathons being, it's life-changing or this or that. I believe a lot of that. I mean, it's not like my life is dramatically different now, but it is definitely the hardest thing I have ever done in my life.
Wow.
It's physically draining, it's emotionally draining, and it's mentally draining to just be out there doing that, and not even just the back-to-back, like just the marathon piece of it. It doesn't help that the races start at 5:30 in the morning because they have to get you through the majority of the park so that they can open it. Which means we stayed on site. We had a friend help us out getting a good deal in one of those Disney Vacation Club resorts. But we still had to be on the shuttle at 4 a.m. to get to the race start, which meant we were getting up at 3 a.m. both days. So 3 a.m. wake up, get ready, 4 a.m. on the shuttle, stand around, lots of waves. Don't even start running until about 6 something because the first wave goes at 5:30, but we weren't until later on. And then run for a few hours and then do it again the next day. The half was fairly uneventful. My brother and I were the only ones that did it. We got up. What we didn't realize, sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Maybe? No.
No. False alarm.
Yeah. Was the reason that they want you on the shuttle at 4 a.m. is because, first of all, there's massive traffic getting into this thing. But the race start isn't in the parking lot where they drop you off. It's about 2.5 miles away that you have to walk before you have to run 13 miles.
What? That seems poorly planned somehow. I don't know. There ought to be just a little golf cart or something to take you over there.
I mean, it's 20,000 people, so.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it logistically, but it just sometimes when, I think usually it's about Survivor, but when we talk about the purity of the experience, it's kind of like, okay, walk 2.5 miles and then run.
Yeah. Maybe they feel like if you can run that far, you can handle the walk, I guess. If you can't handle the walk, you probably shouldn't be in the race.
Well, see, but the thing is like, what if you can handle just the race and the walk at the beginning is the one thing that puts you over the edge of what you can handle and you collapse in the last 2.5 miles of the marathon?
That would be terrible. So then, in true Disney fashion, this is part of the amusing part of the story. So is they, the way big race like this with 20,000 people go, they do waves. So like a bunch of people leave every 2 to 3 minutes. So they kind of spread them out through the course. Well, they not only do fireworks to start the race, they do fireworks for every wave. So starting at 5:30 in the morning, every 2 minutes fireworks go off. And the first day was freezing cold, and so my brother and I are standing in this in what's called the corral, but it's just like this cattle thing of people waiting to run, and we're freezing cold, and we're there because you have to get in there at the start of the race at 5:30, but we didn't go till 6:15, so we're standing in that thing for 45 minutes, freezing cold, listening to these fireworks, knowing that sister and girlfriend are back in bed, and we're just like, I'm looking at them like, this is so mean to say, but I hope those friggin' fireworks are waking them up. Because the hotel was pretty close to it, and found out later, yes, indeed, they did wake them up, and I was like, yes, they didn't get to sleep, calmly while we had to wait out here. Felt bad, but not too bad. But anyway, the half marathon, not too much. It was, from Epcot to Magic Kingdom, back to Epcot. Pretty uneventful, pretty fun. Handled it no problem.
One point of clarification: when you say freezing cold, what actual temperature do you mean?
It was in the 40s, so not literally freezing, but
sure. No, I don't want to undercut the experience. I'm just, I've been dealing with Boston winter, so it's freezing cold is relative. But certainly, I also wasn't, up at 3 a.m. to run a race in. And 40s.
Standing in running gear. Because there's only so much that you can put on warmer clothes and you can actually take them off and they'll donate them. So that's sometimes what people do. But once you get going, like once you're running, I mean, you're running until 8:30 in the morning, and you are running, so you heat up really quickly. So it's hard to judge like what to wear and all that without layering and all that kind of stuff. So, but it was cold. We were shivering. I know it wasn't Boston winter.
Well, you know, 40s is plenty cold when you only have shorts and a t-shirt or something on.
Yes. So we enjoyed it. We ran the whole thing together. We dialed it down from our normal half marathon pace, ran it slower just because we were preparing for the next day. What we realized, though, is that it's not like our cardiovascular system that needs the rest. It's just literally the running. So 13 miles is 13 miles, whether you do it fast or slow. And so it didn't matter that we dialed it back because we still pounded 13 miles out. And we're sore, but we slept it off, got good, woke up the next day. My sister was really stressed out because this was her thing, and she was super excited about it, and she was the one that got us all to do it, and then she just had this like panic attack the day before, like, what if I fail? Everybody's been supporting me, and if I can't do it? And I was like, you'll be fine. She's like, I want to run the first 6 miles at a good speed, just get that out of the way, and then maybe take a little break and get to 10, and once we're at 10 and then halfway, like, I know I can get there. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great plan. So we start off, and I'm faster speed-wise than my sister, for at least, and, I just run at a faster speed, but then I take breaks to walk when I need to. But I stayed with her, and I didn't run away from her because I wanted to, like, get her through those first 6 miles. So I slowed down, and I waited, and I got her there. Like, we got to 10, and, I was starting to not struggle, but it was taking a toll on me, and she was feeling good, and now she had gotten through, like, that, like, stress part. So I just said, hey, go on ahead, let her go. My brother was doing a different strategy. He decided he was going to run 3 miles hard and then walk 2 miles and just do that 5 times, because his theory was, I just ran 13 miles yesterday. I don't want to just blow up. I know I can always run 3 miles, especially if I get 30 minutes of walking to recover. So that was his strategy. He was off doing whatever his own thing, and so I ran by myself from 10 to 18, and then at 18, which would have been one of his 3 mile runs, I waited for him to catch up to me, mostly because I felt like waiting and not doing anything. And then he caught up, and we finished. He was at that point, he had blown up. Like he finished his 18, but he was struggling. So we walked to 20, and then it was not going to work the way that he wanted. But I kind of got him through to the end, and we finished together. So I feel like a good big brother. Like, slowed down for willing to get him there. I waited for another one and helped him get through the end. So I kind of helped them both complete the race. So they're both younger than me. But so that was kind of what all happened during the race. But I'll tell you what, like, there was a time at it's about mile 15 and a half, there's a McDonald's that is public, that's not in the park, that you can park at, and like people can come up to the road and watch the marathon from the side. And my parents had said they were going to do that. And so I was like, at about mile 15, I was like, I fucking hate this thing. I never want to do this again. I was like, but at least I'll see my parents, and like that'll get me going to finish it off. And they weren't there. And then I just had this like irrational like reaction, like, this is bullshit. Like, my parents aren't even here. I hate this. Like, my life sucks. And you just like are so emotionally taxed. Like, that seems like a reasonable response to that. So I just stopped running. I started walking. I was like, fuck it, I'll just walk 10 miles, and I'll still make the cutoff time. Like, they'll give me my medal, and I can just leave and not ever do this again. And I was so grumpy. And then you get to about like 16, and you go back into another park. It's like this. It's not really a park. It's called the Wild World of Sports, and it has like baseball fields and stuff where they actually have like competitions, and you get to run a track, and you get to run on the bases on the baseball field and all that stuff. So that got me going a little bit. So I ran a little bit through there, and then I got myself to 18, and that's when I was just like, it was raining at that point, and I was trying to, my playlist, I didn't make a playlist long enough. because my playlist was only 2 hours, so it had already like reset like once. So I got my phone out, and I've been sweating, and it was raining, and I had gloves on, and like I was trying to like reset the playlist, and it wouldn't. I couldn't move my phone because my phone was so wet on the front that it wouldn't feel my finger commands. And I would try to wipe it off, but everything was soaked through, and I'm just pissed off, and I was like, I can't even listen to fucking music. Like, I hate this. I never want to do this again. And then I was like, I'm just going to sit here and wait for my brother. And then I remembered, oh, wait, I packed my little iPod also in case this happened. I completely forgot about that. So I pulled that out, plugged that in. My brother showed up. We kind of got through all of it. Had another panic attack at mile 20 because you're like, mile 20, a milestone. I only have 6.2 miles left. Wait a minute, 6.2 miles is a long run. And I'm tired, and I've been doing this for 3 hours, and it's 20 miles in. Oh, my God, I'm never finishing. I'm just going to crawl in that bush and cry. You know? But we got going and moving and all that kind of stuff, and we got through it. Our family was waiting for us in Epcot at like mile 25. You know, my dad was drinking a margarita and just hanging out there. And they can see when you're coming because you trigger, like, they follow you on a text alert thing. So when you trigger certain things, they know you're coming.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
So they can get up and watch. Yeah, it's cool. So we powered out the last little bit, and, you know, I started crying at the end just because it was, like, such a release. Like, you know, I wasn't, like, sobbing, but I was just like, I can't control myself, and they give you these medals, and you can't stand up straight, and you're just like, ugh. And you're just so emotional, and then girlfriend comes up, and she's like, all right, what do you guys want to do now? I was like, I don't know anything right now. You know, I'm not making a decision. I don't want to do anything. She's like, well, you need to eat. You should go get in the hot tub. Like, we're supposed, because we were going to go to Epcot later that day. She's like, you need to go do these things. I was like, yeah, just tell us what to do. She's like, tell me what you want to do. I was like, we don't know what we want to do. Like, your mind is blank. Like, literally are blank. You're like, you know those are good ideas to go eat some food and get in a hot tub, but it's hard to be like, yeah, that's what I want to do. You can't make that decision. You're just like, whatever. I'll just stand here forever. You know? Another funny thing about it is, for whatever reason, I decided at like mile 15, I was like, because they have all these aid stations, they hand out like food and energy gels and water and Powerade. I was like, all right, for the next 12 miles, I'm going to consume everything anyone hands me. That was a decision I made.
All right.
So every water station, I drank 2 waters, 2 Powerades. Some kid was standing on the side of the road with a bucket of pretzels. I just ate those. Then I got to, they were giving out, my brother and I were together at this point finally, and they handed out those little energy gel packets. And I don't usually do that because I have like a drink that I make and drink, but I'd already drank all that. I'd thrown away my water bottle because I didn't feel like carrying it anymore. Water bottle I'd had for 15 years. I was like, You know? So I started eating this thing, and my brother was like, dude, your face is so horrible right now. I was like, yeah. He's like, it's not good, is it? I was like, no, it's absolutely horrible. It tastes like vanilla flavored Vaseline. And then I started eating. He's like, why are you keep eating that? I was like, I think I need it. I don't know. I think I'm supposed to eat this.
This is important. This means so
important. This is like mile 19 or 21. I don't remember where it was. And I was just like, I need this. I'm going to keep eating it. I was like, he's like, you don't look like you're enjoying it. I'm like, I'm not. But I'm not enjoying anything right now.
See, when you mentioned the pretzels, I'm just envisioning you grabbing the pretzels and running off, and in the distance receding, hey, my pretzels! That's my pretzels!
No, he was actually offering.
Oh, sure he was. Sure he was.
Maybe. And then you get to like mile 23, and they've got employees there, like right as you're going into Hollywood Studios, and they've got all these candy bars, and they're funny. They go, come, take candy from strangers. Take candy from strangers. You're like, that sounds great. Let me eat the candy. And we were joking about that, and my sister's like, yeah, they're not really strangers, though, because they're Disney employees. Like, I wouldn't have eaten anything, just somebody on the side of the road. I was like, I did. I ate a whole bunch of pretzels. She's like, yeah, I wasn't going to do that.
Here's an X-Lax chocolate bar.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what they were handing me. There was a time in there where my brother and I were walking, and we decided that it was the most hilarious thing in the world to, like, interact with, like, people watching. So, because they, like, shout, like, you're doing great. And I was like, no, we're not. Oh, my God, I'm hilarious. You know? There was, like, these cops there, and I was like, can you give us a ride? And my brother goes, just a mile 25, so it looks like we finished. And then we both started cracking up hysterically because we're like, we're so funny. So you go through, like, those kind of motions where, like, 30 minutes before, I was like, I'm going to die in this bush, and I'm going to be happy with that, too. Like, oh, what in the world? You know? So you go through all that stuff, and it was, it's a long way. It takes a long time. It takes a drain on your body, but you get, you know, all sorts of bling.
Nice. So I guess the big question is, are you hooked now? Like, are you a marathon runner guy now?
I think I would like to try another one where I'm just doing the marathon and see if I can, you know, get a better time. I have decided I really like half marathons. I never thought I would, but it's about the right distance where it's hard enough that you know you're doing something that most people cannot do, but not so hard that you go through all of that, like, bullshit in your head. Like, you know, it's just a hard, long run. It's not this, like, you know, emotional, like, roller coaster of an experience that just drains the shit out of you. So I'd like to do one more marathon and see how I do with that and how that feels. But halves, I'm happy to do half marathons still. But,
nice.
So I did enjoy the experience, even though, like, it was so hard and there were times I was so miserable. It was interesting to go through all that and look back and be like, wow, that was really weird that I, like, felt like that, you know. Are you familiar with the comic strip The Oatmeal?
Yeah.
He's a big runner, and there's a comic called something like what the do's and don'ts of running a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to go through strip by strip here, but it is so dead on that we were laughing so hard because we felt like all of us had run halves before, and we'd felt like pieces of what he describes in there. So we did, like, a team reading the night before, which my girlfriend thought we were all crazy, and, like, we joked, like, oh, this is going to happen to us. I'm going to be that guy. Oh, that's going to be me. And we were laughing about it. And then we did a team reading the night after, and we're like, this is when this happened to me. You know? But it was a lot of fun. It was fun doing it with my siblings. I'm glad I waited for my brother because we finished together.
Mm-hmm.
So my brother and I finished both the half and the full together. We completed all 39 miles. Even though we weren't literally together for all 39 miles, we started and finished them all together. So a little bro bonding on that. And then we were at Epcot Center that day, and, you know, Epcot's, like, got that around the world thing where, you know, you can get lots of food and lots of drinks, and we did that.
Nice.
So it was worth
the Norse Viking log ride thing?
It's not there anymore.
It's not?
No, they're converting that to a Frozen ride.
Oh. Yeah, I can see that.
So, you know, I'm sure it's going to be identical. Like, it didn't look like they were rejigging the whole, like, mechanics of it. I think they're probably just redoing the animatronics to be Frozen. You know.
Sorry, I'm just muting while my dog barks at strangers.
That's fine. But we ate dinner at the Nordic restaurant, so that was fun. We consumed lots of fish and wine. Drank beers in Morocco, drank beers in England, you know. just generally enjoyed ourselves, and then went to Universal the next day, which is my first time seeing the Harry Potter world.
Oh yeah? How was that?
It's amazing. It's the attention to detail is like Disney-like. You know, when you're in Diagon Alley, like it's almost disconcerting when you leave and go into like the regular park because you're like you literally felt like you were in Diagon Alley. Like,
wow.
They do a very, very good job. You know, you feel like when you're sitting there having a beer at the Leaky Cauldron, like you feel like you're in the Leaky Cauldron. You know.
Nice.
Yep.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, I haven't seen that because I've been to Disney World before and I've been to Universal Studios, but Disney World more recently than Universal Studios, and so yeah, they definitely didn't have that when I was there because I think they didn't have Harry Potter yet the last time I was at Universal Studios, meaning like Harry Potter was not a thing yet. It's probably high school. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I think that's the last time I had been to Universal, so I was glad that we did that, and you know, we recovered quickly after the marathon too. Like it wasn't like the training worked, so I know if we trained to do the distance, it would also work. You know, because our recovery training was fine. We were fine the next day. Walked around the park just fine. You know, a little stiff, but nothing crazy. I just think about like now. I mean, I can still go run now, and I can just run what used to be like, oh my god, that's going to be a painful long run. Like it's just not even a thing. You know, so I ran a lot leading up to this. It was, I mean, it's just one of those things. Like your life is not that interesting because you know that's like becomes your Sunday. Is you're gonna get up, put on your shit, and go disappear for 2 hours, 3 hours. Yeah. I've had people be like, I can't focus on like a movie for 3 hours. Like, how do you run for 3 hours? I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to run a hell of a lot more than that when this is all like done. So.
Yeah. Just makes me wonder, like, so your playlist, was it all music, or you know, when you run, generally, is it always music, or have you ever tried anything like audiobooks or podcasts while you're running?
No, I prefer music, especially stuff with a good tempo, you know, because it helps keep you like, I feel like an audiobook wouldn't, I feel like I would slow down and, you know, wouldn't be able, because you also don't pay tons of attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of a thing that like when you need it and you need to drift off and like not focus on running, you can kind of dial into the music, and if it's a song you like, you kind of run a little faster. So yeah, mine's all music, a variety of stuff, you know, it's all pretty upbeat, so it's, you know, some types of hip hop, not like gangster rap or anything like that, but stuff with more of like a party beat, you know, some dance stuff, some, you know, some pop music if it has a good, you know, but it's all, you know, heavy beats, things like that. When I'm training, I sometimes use like an internet radio station so I get some variety to it. But on the longer runs, that drains your battery like so quick. So I'll do just a music playlist that I built. But I built the playlist for like a 2-hour training run. And I kept saying, like, as the training runs got longer, oh, I should make my playlist longer. I never did, so all I would do was just recycle it. And I ran that half marathon the first day, and I was like, I had to go through my playlist, you know. Yeah, I had to start my playlist over. I really should have more tomorrow because otherwise I'm going to have to listen to it so many times. And I just didn't do it because I was tired. And so, yeah. But I did remember to pack, like, an extra iPod at least, so at least I didn't have to go music free for the last like 8 miles.
Yeah. Well, I'm still thinking like it's like Brussels sprouts, you know. It's like I get that other people like them, but At the same time, I mean, I can certainly imagine the sense of accomplishment. The whole thing of training really hard to do something and then achieving it. So that's great, and I'm super impressed. But I'm also just I'm not feeling like I'm sold. Something that I need to do. No, I know. I know you're not. I'm just, as you describe it, I'm imagining myself in your shoes and thinking, you talk about wanting to go cry in the bush, and I'm just thinking, yeah, I probably would have, I guess I would have probably given up before I even got that far.
The crying in the bush thing was funny because that was like a joke my sister made when she was like in her like stressed out phase. Was like, if you guys might leave me and all this, and we're like, we're not gonna leave you. Like, if anything, you're gonna leave us. She's like, yeah, and then you're gonna find me crying in a bush like later in the thing, just like, oh, this and more. And so my brother and I were running, and we were running by this bush, and he's like, I think I want to go in there and cry. I was like, I definitely want to go in there and cry. The bush looks comfortable. And it wasn't comfortable looking bush. It was just like, that seemed like a funny thing to say at the time. And there were times where we're just walking, it's like, it hurts to walk now. Like, I feel like we should just run because it hurts no matter what we do. Like, everything just hurts. Like, so maybe we should just run, try to finish. And then you start running, you're like, no, that definitely hurts worse. I mean, everything hurts.
That definitely seems like one of those irrational thoughts brought on by exhaustion.
I knew I was in trouble when, like, your legs always like hurt like after that many miles, but when, like, because you run with your arms like, bent. When this started to cramp from being like in that position for so long, that's when I knew I was in trouble. I was like, God, literally everything hurts. Like, my arms hurt. You don't even use your arms. And I was like running like this to try to stretch them out. I was like, fuck, this is miserable. What are we doing? Why did we sign up for this? We're so dumb.
Well, you said it, not me. No, still though, I mean,
And they give you this.
Yeah. Sorry, I've got Lena climbing all over me here. She thinks she wants a treat. She wanted to see your trophy.
Well, I guess I didn't say why my parents weren't at the mile that they were supposed to be.
Oh, yeah?
So
too many margaritas?
No, margaritas were later. So I was telling the story, and I was like, yeah, and then that happened, and I got irrationally upset that you weren't there, and they're like, oh, you know what happened? We saw Laura, my sister, and she was running along, and we're like, where are the boys? And she's like, oh, I've left them, or they've left me, or whatever she said. And my parents hadn't been checking, like, or whatever, the text alert didn't work at 13 for some reason, so that was at 15. So they didn't know where we were. They knew that my sister and I crossed 10 together, and then she said we had separated. So my parents assumed that my brother and I had left her behind and were ahead, so they just left. And I came through like 10 minutes after her, and he came through 10 minutes after me, and they weren't there because they had gone on to the end because they thought they wanted to get to the end before we got there, and I was like, no. We're not that good. Like, I have one regret.
Oh.
So when you go through Animal Kingdom, it was early in the morning still, so it was probably at that point 6:30 a.m., 7 a.m. Or 7 a.m. because it was about an hour into it. Maybe 7:30. It was about an hour and a half into it. So the park hadn't opened yet at 8. So I'm running, and I see this line of people, the Everest ride. And I assumed they were like waiting to get into a bathroom because a lot of people will like go to the bathroom in the parks because you can use a real restroom instead of like a porta potty because they let you use the park restrooms. So I just assumed that, and I was like, I wonder what, like they're going into the ride to go to the restroom, and I was still running at that point, like I wasn't like jogging like I did the end of it. And I see the ride, and I was like, the ride's running, that's cool. And then it kind of clicked, and I kind of looked back, and they even had set up like a 5-minute wait time. They were letting you go on the ride if you were a runner while the park wasn't open. So you could get in line, ride the ride, and carry on. And I was running, and I was like, and it's right at like mile 12. So I'm like, I should go back and do that. And I was like, but halfway is only a mile away, and that's a milestone that, if I get to halfway, like I know I can walk the back half and still meet the time requirement. So you're like, no, I'm just going to run. And then you run to halfway, and I'm standing at halfway, and I was like, God, I should ride that fucking ride. And by the end, I wish it was so shitty anyway. Like, I wish I had ridden the ride.
Well, I'm remembering Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, where at the beginning they go out of their room and they say, "Oh, I forgot my cell phone. Should we go back for it?" And they look back, and they're like 10 yards down the hall from their door. No, we've come too far. So they keep going.
It did feel like that because I'd have to backtrack, and it was literally like 20 yards backtrack. But I had to backtrack, and then it would take a while to ride the ride, so it might hurt my time. Not that fucking mattered.
Well, not only, I mean, because you'd also be resting while that went on, you know. Right. But yeah, no, I feel like I get it though, just in the sense of, like, you know, certainly from a rational perspective, you can come up with all these reasons why it would have been fine, but I can totally get just the emotional angle of how going backwards any amount would feel like just the exact opposite of what you need to do. Mm-hmm. Like I get that.
Well, like even at the beginning when I was like pulling my sister along, which sounds funny since she ended up finishing like 20 minutes before me, it was hard to like stop and wait for her because like I was feeling good. Like I felt good for the first like 10 to 12 miles, and I could run quick, and I wanted to just crush it and get it out of the way before I blew up, because I was going to blow up one way or the other, so I just wanted to at least log as many miles as possible before the wheels came off. And I was like, nope, the right thing to do is wait for her, but you just stand there, and all these people would run by, and you're like, oh, God, I'm just like not making any progress, and like you had to like think about it. And that was early in the race. I mean, it was also 6 in the morning, but you know, it was early. But it was the right thing to do because it got her going, and this was, as much as I had all this experience, like this was her thing, and she is on top of the world right now. Like, you know, she's a marathoner, and 3 years ago, she wasn't a runner at all. Like, she just got interested in doing the Boulder. So she trained herself over the course of a year. She did the Boulder is a 10K for anybody who's listening or watching. She did a 5K once a month for an entire year in preparation for the Boulder, which is a 10K. She did that and loved it and decided to do that every year. And then after the second year doing it, she decided, hey, I'm good at this. I'd like to do the Disney Marathon because she loves Disney. And so she just dedicated herself to doing this, and, you know, she's a marathoner, you know, 3 years after not being a runner at all. So I'm proud of her. She's loving it, you know. I mean, I'm proud of myself and I'm proud of my brother, but, you know, this was her thing. So we're really...
Oh, right. And being able to make it through those moments of hesitation or of anxiety, you know, I mean, like, that's a powerful experience, too. You know what I mean? It's like that's where, like, the bravery angle comes in, right? Is, you know, you can't be brave unless you're scared.
Oh, you'll be scared. You do this.
I'm scared right now.
You definitely get scared leading up to it. Like the 3 or 4 days leading up to it, it was scary. It was like, God, this is going to be so long, and are we ready for this? Like, what's going to happen? Like, what am I going to feel like? Because at that point, you've done enough runs that you know how bad that hurts. to get to those miles, and realize that, it's just like, that's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. It's going to. Like, I just have to resign myself to understand I'm gonna be in just absolute agony for hours. And you want to quit. Like, they talk about you hitting the wall. You definitely hit a wall. Like, there's a time where you're just like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. And if someone, it's like, you like feel like you, like on Survivor, like if someone had rolled up, like if Probst had rolled up in a van and been like, I will drive you straight to the hot tub right now. All you have to do is say you don't really want that medal, and I'll be like, yeah, I don't fucking care. Like, what's that medal mean? Just take me to the hot tub.
Mm-hmm.
And you get through it, and there's times 3 miles after that where if that had happened, you'd be like, fuck you, I'm going to finish, And then 3 miles later, you're like, God, I wish I could be done again. It's weird, and it takes a lot of resolve. Not to mention all the resolve it takes to train yourself over the months leading up to it to be prepared physically to even be in a position to have the resolve.
Yeah, well, like that's definitely what you've talked about before, which is that when people talk about it taking willpower to run a marathon, you've talked before about the idea that the real willpower is not even so much in the forcing yourself to keep going on the day, it's more making sure that you have put in enough time training. Although it sounds like it also is not insignificant to make sure you can finish on the day.
So far, I have now learned that there is willpower in both pieces. I mean, it did take an incredible amount of willpower to be prepared to do it, but
yeah,
it did take a lot of will. Prepare to put yourself in a position to need the willpower to finish it.
Well, it's what's I think interesting about the whole experience, and this is not intended to, I don't know, diminish or make fun of it in any way, but I think that there's really something to the idea that part of the appeal, it's not even, like, for me, it seems like it's not even just the athletic accomplishment of it, it's literally that idea of, like, pushing your body closer to the limit than you. It's like when people go see a scary movie, there's that whole aspect of like, oh, I was startled, oh, but now I'm okay, and that feels good. Linda's startled too, so hey, Linda, come on. But the idea that Linda, come on. No, come, Linda, come. Sorry, everyone. But just the idea that you're startled, but then you're okay. And so in the same way, the idea of putting that much strain on your body to the point where your hindbrain might be pretty sure you're about to die, but then you're okay. And there's the relief of that. I can imagine that aspect of it.
I think that's why I teared up at the end, because there was like, wow, I really am okay, and I did this, and I solved world peace and saved all the dolphins, and but no, really, I just did an asinine thing to myself and survived.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure there's an aspect of being emotional too. It's like, I don't have to run anymore today.
Well, it's more than that. It's I don't ever have to run again if I don't want to. Never again do I have to run. I could take a week off. I could take 2 weeks off. I just ran 39 miles. No one can tell me I should be running ever again.
Well, anyway, though, I mean that's great. That's a huge accomplishment, and you've been working towards that for a long time. So, good for you.
Yeah, and I would say that your analogy of the scary movie thing is pretty adequate. And I guess the last thing, because I was talking a little bit, making the joke about how we couldn't decide to even whether we should eat first or get in the hot tub. It made me reflect on I read a lot of stuff and about how you have a willpower and decision-making threshold, and why it's important, for example, this is sort of going to seem kind of a weird aside, but I set up my closet where the way, like, when my shirts get washed, I put them on the left-hand side, and then every morning when I get up, I just pull a shirt from the right-hand side to wear for work, because that way I never have to think about it. Like, when it's time to get dressed for work, just grab one from the right-hand side, and then I never have to worry about, did I wear the same shirt too many days in a row, because the ones that have been used are always at the far left, like the ones that were most recently worn, so it's always something that hasn't been worn in like 2 or 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It eliminates that decision-making, because I've read a lot of stuff about how, like, even small things like, what are you going to have for breakfast, what are you going to wear today, they drain that meter of decision-making and then thus make it harder for you at your job. So the more decisions you can eliminate, the more automation you can put into it, the better you can focus on your tasks. This was like the extreme version of that, because you had been forced to decide to not quit and to keep going for so long. When you get to the end, you literally have zero decision-making capability left, even if it's something as simple as, would you like to go eat some food, or would you like to shower? I don't know. You tell me. Tell me what I should be doing. You know, and it seems stupid, but in the moment, like, and, you know, my girlfriend was getting mad at me. She's like, that's just you. You're just being difficult. And I was like, I asked my brother, so I was like, what do you guys want to do? And they're like, what? Like, what do you want to do right now? Well, we're sitting on the bus.
I'm going to Disney World.
And we're like, yeah, I mean, we're sitting on the bus. Once we get back to the hotel, what do you want to do? I mean, we're sitting on the bus. It's like, and I was like, see? Like, we literally can't do anything right now. We have no brain power at this point. You know?
Sorry, I'm trying to scoop Luna up into my lap, but she was struggling. Like, she doesn't want me to scoop her up and show her on camera.
Luna.
All right, Luna. Okay.
She's gotten big.
Well, she's been the same size for a while, but it's all relative. She's bigger than she was when she was little.
So that is my stuff. I have physical stuff. I had hopefully an interesting story. The culmination of something that we discussed a long time ago came true. I'm happy that materialized into something I actually did. I'm happy to have done it. And, yeah, proud of my siblings and I for doing this together and having some fun.
I'm proud of you, too. One of the, some of what you were saying makes me think of, just the idea of not hacking. That I feel like that word's become trite now, but the idea of just studying your own neurological responses to things and just kind of being more aware of some of the ways that your brain might work that you don't normally think about. And just in that context, what's had me thinking about those sorts of things is doing improv. So I'm in improv 301 now.
Oh.
Yeah. So each session is 8 weeks long. So I did started 101 in the summer and then 201, and so now I'm in 301. But what's interesting about improv, and I think I've talked about this before, but compared to something like being in a play, for example, which I've also done, not in a while, but it's scripted, of course, and you rehearse it until you have the lines memorized. You plan out the blocking. You work out all the little bits of business you're going to do with your fellow actors. And once you have all of that down, you have this structure in place that might allow you to do subtle little variations from one performance to the next because you have that groundwork laid. Luna, you are driving me freaking crazy. Sorry, it's been a thing recently. She's been doing this more often lately, and I don't know what to do about it. That's a whole other story, which I'll get into maybe in a little bit. But anyway, that is one type of performance. Improv and the way you prepare for it is almost entirely different. It is only very superficially similar. Because, Luna, no, come on, down. Down. Okay. All right. What happens in improv is it's more like practicing a sport. Because, you know, one football game is not going to be the same as the next football game. You know, you're not, like, there's rules in place for that, you know, limits the number of things that can happen to a non-infinite subset of all possibility, right? But at the same time, you know, you're going to run one play, the other team's going to run one play, maybe someone will catch the ball, maybe they won't. Every game is going to be different in that way, right? Well, in the same sense, every improv show is going to be completely different by design. And so it puts you in this situation of, let's say you're getting ready to go do your Improv 201 showcase show, and someone says, what kind of things are you going to do? And you'd say, I don't know. What are the scenes going to be? I don't know. And that's weird. You know, like, my performing background has always been scripted, you know, and you have a confidence that's built out of saying, I know that I know my lines, we've rehearsed it, we've practiced it, I know I can do it because I've done it before. But this is different because it's, you only know that you've done that kind of thing before. And there's always the possibility that you're going to reach for those skills when the show comes and come up with nothing, but you're still going to be out there on the stage. And so to have confidence going into an improv show, there's more like faith and trust involved. It's more like muscle memory than it is practice, you know, like rehearsed practice. And it feels very different. Like, I'm not even sure, for people who have never really done either, I'm not sure how effectively I'm communicating the difference. But it does feel very different because, you know, it's the whole dynamic of, you know, are you a planning person or a spontaneous person? And the two things are pretty different because, as chaotic as a normal play can be, it's very planned. You know, you've got a director, you've got all the lines. You know that you're supposed to come out to this spot on the stage because that's where the guy knows to shine the spotlight, and you got to turn this way, and then you got to say the line with this timing because then that other guy knows that that's his cue to come in, and it's all of that is structured. Whereas improv show, it's for maybe an even better illustration of this is there are several times in improv where what you'll be doing when you practice is you'll have two lines of people. The people on this line, one of them is going to come out and make an offer. Like, you just come out and say, you know, hey, we've talked it over, we're kicking you out of the band. You know, whatever. You know, and then the other person will just have to respond to that. And so it is human nature that when you're in the line where you're going to have to come up with an offer, it's human nature to try to sort of plan in advance what your offer is going to be. To like think, I have a good one. Oh yeah, this is going to be great, and you're holding it on in your head. You're like, oh yeah, this one's going to be so funny. I really like this offer. I'm going to be totally ready when time comes. But the thing is, that in improv is actively counterproductive. Because to really be doing improv right, you have to be in the moment. And if you're in your head planning in advance what you're going to do, 5 scenes might come and go while you're waiting in line, that all of those could have been more inspired you to something more interesting. Or what if you're not even paying attention to what they're doing, and then they do something that's kind of like that already, and then you're going to come out and feel like you weren't paying attention because you just did one that was similar. And then there's also sometimes the possibility when you have something that's less structured, where it's defined that this person offers, this person accepts. Like, you might have this great idea for an offer, and you come out and you're getting ready to start it, and then the other person in the scene says something completely different. And if you're not in the moment, you're going to get stuck for a moment. You're going to be thinking, I was going to do this other thing, but okay. And that's no good. You have to be ready to sort of turn on a dime, to keep you on your toes. And it's kind of exciting but scary in that way. But it's fun. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, sounds like it. You made it to your junior year, so.
Yeah. Well, it's if only high school you could go through each year in only 8 weeks. But yeah, so I guess just the different feeling of having to just trust that something's going to come. Because I think lots of people might know, have heard of freeze, where you'll have people in a scene and then someone will say freeze, and then they come and tag out one of the people from that scene and start a new scene. It's one of the common games they might do on Whose Line Is It Anyway or whatever.
Yep.
But the thing is they absolutely say you're not waiting until you have an idea and then waiting for them to be in the right position for you to say freeze. No, generally what you want to be doing is listening to the scene that they are doing and waiting to a point that's a good finishing point for that scene, and then saying freeze with no idea in your own mind about what you're going to do until you actually just go out there and start doing it. And that's the way to keep it all lively and fluid. And what's kind of really weird about it is that when the more in the moment and spontaneous and really in the groove you are, I frequently find that the less you remember after the fact about what happened. After you've done a show or after a rehearsal or whatever, the details you remember are when you screwed something up and it kind of ground to a halt, or it wasn't as funny, or it was a little awkward. But the scenes that went really well, you're often kind of wait, what was that scene again? I don't remember, and someone else will be telling you how funny it was. It's weird. It's almost dreamlike in that way.
I know you've equated the sort of the running thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's equal to that. I was out there for hours, and there are hours that I don't really, when I was running well and nothing was really interesting going on,
mm-hmm.
just gone, because you're just in that groove and you're just running.
Mm-hmm.
Saw lots of cool stuff. Ran through every park. Ran through Magic Kingdom, saw Space Mountain, and did all this stuff. That part's just kind of you have to go back and recall it, because when things were going well and you were kind of in the moment and you were feeling good, the miles just tick away.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, is it was 26 miles, and I've talked to you really mostly only about the last 10 to 12, and even pieces of that weren't even a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very similar that when you're in that groove and things are really flowing and you're feeling good, it just you don't think about it, So it's interesting to hear you relate that to something that I think most people, when they think about improv, are thinking of it in the way that you were talking about, where there's all of this stuff going on in the back of your head,
mm-hmm.
of you're processing and trying to plan out like what's the best next move and what am I going to do that's going to have the most impact. So it's interesting to hear you say that it actually works the best when you drop that, get yourself in that groove, you know, like you're training, you know, like when you're when you're running at the pace that you trained at, you know, and you're not, there's nothing interesting about that. That's what you trained at, that's what you're doing. You're just clicking off miles. You know, the same thing in improv is that you are relying on your training and all of your practice to be funny and interesting without having to think what's going to be the most funny and the most interesting.
Right. Like, for example, I mean, that's one of the things that, you know, I mean, I'm still, you know, the term generally used is I'm a baby improviser still. You know, I've not been doing it for very long, because even if we want to say 301, oh, that sounds like I'm practically advanced, what we mean is I've been doing it for less than 6 months. So, I mean, there's been people who've been doing it for years and years, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it is, it's definitely, you know, some people might be able to be good and quick with sort of an in their head, proactively planned approach, but I would say that would be by far the rare exception, because, I mean, that is actively what they are teaching you not to do in the classes. It's a little bit of a like a double edge, because on the one hand they're trying to teach you what works and what doesn't. Like, for example, I think a lot of people are familiar with yes and, which is the idea that whatever someone says to you, you shouldn't negate it, and then you should add more information. And the reason you don't want to negate it is because if we want to imagine we're getting ready to build a scene, and someone says, oh no, what are we going to do? The barn's burning down. And then someone goes, oh no, the rain put it out. Now what? Like, it stops everything dead. You know what I mean? But if someone says, oh no, you're right, and now the fire is caught on the fields too, or oh no, and all the animals are still inside. You know, like, if you're agreeing with what's been offered and then you add to it, it moves things forward. And so that's just an example. Other, you know, little things like that is try not to ask questions, because what that does is it just forces your partner to come up with everything. You know, it's like, oh, hey, what are you doing there? And the person's like, I don't know. And so, but at the same time, because you're getting these various lessons, it's easy to kind of start being in your head. It's like, oh, gotta make sure not to do that. But instead, it's really more like it's really more like the whole Malcolm Gladwell Blink thing than almost anything else I've ever done. Mm-hmm. You know, because his whole analogy of you know going back to football, even, like, if we talk about like just the actual neurology and physics and everything, the amount of time he has to look downfield to see the receivers and then decide where to throw the ball and then throw it, like, there's really just not actually enough time for there to be watching where the receivers are and then making a conscious decision of, okay, well, he looks like he's covered, he looks like he's covered, oh, but he's going to be free when he does the little button hook, so I'm going to throw it to him, and I need to throw it like this. Like, there's not time for that to happen. It all has to be instinct born of tons and tons of drilling. Because, like, by the time his brain is making the decision of where he's throwing the ball and how hard, like, the players are not actually in those positions yet. And so you have it's all about, like, recognizing patterns and then doing it just without even thinking about it. And the people who are best at improv, that's how it works for them too, is that they have so much practice that they don't have to remember, oh yeah, I need to say yes and. They just do it because that's how they do it. And so, but it's that weird balance of trying to build in that training without getting in your head about it.
Yep.
Anyway, I don't know that I have a lot else to say about that right at the moment. So I don't know. We're at about an hour. Do you want to call it, or do you want to keep on going?
No, let's call it. We can bank the other stuff for another time.
Yep. All right. So I think that'll probably do it then for this episode of Talking About Stuff. Thanks for listening and/or watching, everybody. And we've had one viewer fairly consistently all the way through, or at least it might not have always been the same person, but it always said one viewer. So whoever that was, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so remember, you can find this video and all of the other videos that I'm doing on my YouTube channel and at ChristianaEllis.com. And I'll just mention here for anyone who has not already realized this, maybe if you're listening to the audio version of this, is that I'm now doing a 5-minute daily YouTube video first thing in the morning called 5 More Minutes. And so you should go check that out. And I tell you, it's gotten worse recently, which is why I'm frustrated with it. It's very complex because on the one hand, it might be easy to just try to simply train her, don't bark. I mean, that would be hard enough, but at least that's simple. But I don't really want to do that because, like, you know, the whole watchdog, like if someone was trying to break in the middle of the night, I want her to wake me up for that, right? So I don't want to train her never bark no matter what. But then the whole idea of, okay, you can bark if there's a serious enough noise, but then you also need to stop if I tell you to stop. That is much more complex for a little dog to understand, and you run the risk of reinforcing the wrong patterns. Like, so for example, she's barking, I call her, whoa.
Sorry.
If she's barking and I call her and I have her lay down and be quiet for a moment and then I give her a treat, am I training her that she gets rewarded when she's quiet and stops barking, or am I training her that when she's bored and wants attention, she can bark at something and then I will call her to me and give her a treat? Because she's smart enough that that very well could happen. And also, if you want to do like positive reinforcement, like the idea is like I need to reward her when she's not doing anything, because she's probably not going to connect that to, oh, I'm being quiet now, so I get rewarded when I'm quiet. That's not going to be what happens. It's going to be more like that whole idea of when you randomly reinforce randomly reinforce something independent of the behavior, they start developing really weird behavior patterns trying to figure out what it is. It's much more likely that that's what would happen. So anyway, yeah. Thanks a lot, Luna. You're driving me crazy. I still love her, of course, but it's been a thing. It's worse in this apartment than it was at the old one. I think maybe she's just not used to the noises yet, or something else is different. But anyway, other than that, she's doing great. But so, where were we? Oh yes, all the stuff is at ChristianaEllis.com. I got YouTube videos and stuff in addition to this one, and Mike's got fancy Disney bling. Listen to that clinking. That's heavy, yeah.
Yeah. Big spinners.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening and/or watching, and we'll be back at some point with more talking about stuff.
All right.